The video is about the online application VegXshiny. I'll show you how to import a vegetation table with plant species cover in plots into the Veg-X exchange format. This is an example of a vegetation table that shows the cover of species in sample plots. The upper part lists the properties of the sample plots, while the lower part displays the cover values of species. These values have been estimated layer-wise as % cover, so we have values for species in the tree layer, shrub layer, and herb layer. Our goal is to import this into the Veg-X exchange format. Here is the entry page of VegXshiny. The workflow in this app is to upload a file in this Upload section where it can also be edited, to import to Veg-X in the Import section, to look at the results of the import in the Review section, and to download the final Veg-X. The Log section is relevant if you encounter errors. Okay, let's start. We'll go through the main menu from left to right, starting with the Upload tab. When you click on the Browse button, your local file manager will open, and you can select your file, in this case, the Excel spreadsheet we saw earlier. For a smooth import, tabular data usually needs to be rearranged. Importing requires the data to be organized so that each variable has its own column and each plot or observation has its own row. There should be only one column for each type of variable. For example, if you measured species cover and have a table like this one, it should be transformed so that there is one column for species covers and columns for plot IDs and dates. This transformation and others can be done in the Upload section, and I will show you how. Start an editing session and remove the header part while keeping the dates. The dates are currently in a peculiar format, but we'll address that later. We have two columns that identify the objects with estimated cover values, one for species and one for layers, because the cover has been estimated layer-wise. For a later step, we'll temporarily merge these columns into one. The app adds the new combined column as the last column. Next, we'll transpose the entire table and set the species names as column headers. Now, let's take a look at the dates. When imported, Excel dates are reset to their internal values, which are for Windows computers' days since the 31st of December 1899. We can correct this here. When entering a format for Windows Excel, make sure to type Excel-Win. Do it slowly because the app interprets your input in real time. Examples of other date conventions can be found in the tooltip. As you can see, the plot IDs are currently column names, but what we actually need is a column dedicated to plot IDs. This can be easily done using the Row Names to Column button. We're almost there now, but before the next step, I saved the table under the name Species. After saving, the table enters a no-edit mode, but we return to editing. Pivoting transforms a wide table like this one into a long table. It will soon become clear what this means. Pivoting can be a bit complex, so we added examples and descriptions. The first example here shows the starting point and our goal, one column for species and one for cover values. The required index columns are plot ID and date because cover estimates are time-dependent. The ID columns are selected here. Next, we need to ensure the remaining columns are value columns with cover values. The selected ID columns are ignored, so it's fine that they appear in the list. The new columns, one for species and one for the values, need names. To shrink the data, absences of species are omitted. The merged column can be back-transformed into a species and a layer column. We now have a neatly structured long table with two ID columns, plot IDs and dates, and a single column for cover values. I just quickly fixed the string NA that crept in here earlier. Remember to save the results. Now let's have a look at the rest of the data. We go back to the original table and crop the table so that the header lines remain. In our case, one column can be deleted, and I save the results as header. This header data consists of 4 types of data, which are addressed separately. First, there is metadata about the plot observation at a certain time, in this case consisting of date and observer. Second, there is information about the plots themselves, including coordinates, aspect, and slope, plot size, and form. They have in common that they do not change in time, at least not in relevant timescales. The third type are cover values for bare ground, litter, and life plants. The fourth type of data consists of vegetation layers with their overall cover. Because they go into different elements of the Veg-X document, they are imported separately. The good news is that it is not necessary to understand how Veg-X is structured, as you will be asked during the import process which columns are needed, and you can come back here and prepare the data accordingly. I continue with preparing the first and second type of header data, which are already pretty well formed. What is left to do here is, the header data needs to be transposed, the column names need to be redefined, the plot IDs need their own column, and the date needs to be adjusted. After that, I save them under the original name header. The third type with bare ground, litter, and life plants cover is treated just as the species before. What we need is only one single column holding the cover values. Before pivoting, I save the table under a new name. Then I remove all other columns apart from plot IDs and dates. Now we are ready for pivoting. The last type, the layers, are treated the same way. With all the tables prepared, the import can start. First of all, some information about the project can be provided. This includes at least a title for your project, but there's more like the possibility to add a project description or a project owner. There are certain requirements. For example, if you add a PI name, you need to provide role and whether it is a person or institution as well. The dialog leads you to the plots section for all the static plot properties. Remember, I save them in a table called header. These time-invariant plot properties include, in our case, coordinates, geometry, and topography. The individual tabs let you enter the respective variables. In the Coordinates tab, I assign longitude, latitude, and the measurement method, which is lon-lat in degrees. You need to include a coordinate reference string or a placeholder if you don't know it. The plot form and plot size go into the Geometry tab. Again, select the appropriate method. If there is no appropriate method, you can define one in this dialog, but I will not go into detail here. Aspect and slope with their methods go in the Topography tab. I confirm that there are no subplots involved, and here you go. The next dialog is dedicated to observations, including metadata with date and author, species cover, layer cover, and cover of other surface types. I just click my way through the tabs. In the aggregate organism observations, strata definitions must be defined if the observations are structured in strata. The rest of the mapping is straightforward. In the summary, everything is nice and green, so I press Import. The resulting Veg-X document can be reviewed here and downloaded in the Download section. You can download the resulting Veg-X file, but other options will be added over time. Currently, you can export a flat data table. This is particularly relevant in the reverse case, when Veg-X is to be converted into a vegetation table, or a zip archive containing text files with long tables used in databases, or a file containing a list that can be directly loaded into R. This is it. Thank you for listening, and if you run into problems, open an issue on GitHub.